apply to some of us or none of us. Enforcing the law some of the time to some people will not work. Inconsistent enforcement will erode public safety, enable lawlessness, and represents a missed opportunity at engagement and intervention to encourage treatment. Because if we have the enforcement of law, then we can have those individuals, instead of going to jail, instead of paying a fine that they can't pay, let's get them into a treatment program. That is the idea behind the short, mid, and long-term solutions, but it requires enforcement of the law. So where does this take us now? What comes next in this process? Well, what comes next is that the people have demanded that their voices be heard. What comes next, and I'll show you for a moment because I just received this morning. What comes next is that this must end. I was handed this storyboard just this morning by a woman named Erin, who runs a program for autistic kids. Since the middle of July, in her area, right outside where she runs the program for autistic children, a true saint, they have seen nudity, sex acts, arson, vandalism, and theft. Just in the last 2 months, right there. This is going to end. And so later this afternoon, the lawsuits that have been filed both by Mr. Gavrilov's office and my office will be served on the city. And then after that, each of you will be provided with a link in which you can download my complaint, along with the photographs that you see up here on the screen that have been attached as an exhibit to the complaint, and the drone videos that are being shown right now. And I do want to recognize and thank El Dorado County District Attorney Vern Pearson, whose team filmed the drone videos. What comes next? What comes next is that we begin the process of litigation. What comes next is that we will be demanding text messages, emails, and a production of documents. What comes next is we will be noticing depositions of witnesses. We are going to take this to trial. We will be calling 400 to 500 witnesses that will talk about the impact of the city's actions and inactions. And at the end of the day, after a jury and a judge rules in the favor of the people, we will ensure that the city follows through with its mandate. And its mandate is to keep our streets clean and safe. And we will make sure that everyone that is up here today, and everyone that is in the audience, and everyone that fills out that survey, and their family members, and the thousands upon thousands that live in our community, will be heard. As we look out, we think that the homeless and the unhoused crisis is bleak and dark. But I'm always reminded of a saying. It's always darkest right before the dawn. I can tell you that sunrise is coming. That the sunrise is coming soon enough, and it will shine its beautiful rays of light upon our city of trees. Thank you very much. So now, I'm going to open it up for questions, and I'll be the only one answering the questions, but I will open it up. And if you wish to ask a question from our media, please step up to the microphone and identify yourself. Thank you.
Hi, Dieto. Mason Morrow from Fox 40 here. So I believe we spoke maybe 5 weeks ago, and you said you didn't want to have to reach the point of litigation if it didn't come to that. Since then, the city has given the city manager full authority to find safe ground sites, which is something that you touched on just now, as well as there was a temporary restraining order on sweeps within the past month because of excessive heat for 2 weeks. Were both of those factors taken into consideration in this investigation to promptly go forth with the litigation?
You know, we took everything into account. After gathering the evidence, and that's what we do as prosecutors, that's what we do as lawyers. We gather the evidence first. We review the evidence, analyze it in conjunction with the law before coming up to a decision. A major factor in this was the survey responses, and talking to the people that are up here with me, the people in the audience, and the people filling out the survey, people sending in emails. And so we took all of that into account And the city has had, this isn't an issue here of just 30 days or 60 days or 90 days. The city has had 7 years to address this problem, and in those 7 years, we've seen an explosion of our unhoused population to over 250%. 7 years is 7 years too long.
You could go out, or going out could come to you. Lazy boy, long live the lazy.
Get NFL's Sunny Ticket on YouTube TV this season. Plus, eligible users can enjoy 3 months of Max, included at no extra cost, to watch HBO originals and more. YouTube TV. Try it free. Terms apply.
The city attorney's letter implies that you were not aware of the full scope of that memorandum of understanding between your two offices, allowing you to prosecute city ordinance misdemeanor codes within the downtown core. My question is that the case? Were you not aware of the full scope of it? And does your office plan on not only launching this lawsuit, but also helping to prosecute? You're wanting to see more prosecution. You're wanting to see more enforcement. If these cases come to you, if these referrals come to you, will your office prosecute in the downtown core?
So first of all,
And I'm sorry, I'm Becca Hobiger with ABC 10 News. Thank you.
well, Becca, thank you. So first of all, I want to be clear that last year my office prosecuted 11,000 misdemeanor cases, and over 9,000 felony cases. We consistently enforce the law. And just in the downtown area, for example, we have a community prosecutor down here that has filed approximately 99% of the cases he's reviewed. He's also filed downtown city ordinance violations as well. So we have done that. We continue to do that. We have done it. In fact, we've done city code violations and prosecuted them more than the city attorney's office has. And the fact of the matter is, in regards to the downtown core area, that covers 66.5 square block. What about the other 99.2 square mile of the city? What we're asking for is to consistently enforce the law. And if we do that, then we will then have an opportunity to get to the midterm and the long-term solutions.
Hello, Robert Hansen from the Sacramento Observer. If you were the city's homeless czar and you had the ability to clean up everything that you'd like to see the mayor do, what would you be doing right now if that was on you?
Absolutely. So the first thing I would do, I would pass an ordinance that permits camping at night. But during the day, you would have a series of storage facilities where our unhoused can store their property. That's what they have protecting City Hall. We need to extend that to the rest of the community. I'd also note that the city has spent probably $1 million+ in sanitation equipment, and a lot of it is still sitting unused in a parking lot. I would start using that sanitation equipment. I would also establish safe ground sites that are professionally operated as well. And in addition, I want to talk, and I talked about this in the letter, the city of San Diego has a very unique program in which every morning shelters have to input information into a database where you know how many shelter beds are available. It's like booking.com. You want to know how many rooms you have in a hotel. In the same way, the city needs to know how many shelter beds are available at any given moment. And so I propose to the city to pass this ordinance, which is if someone is unhoused, you offer them shelter. If they refuse, they get a warning. We have a shelter space available for you. The second time, if you refuse, they get a citation that can be waived and dismissed if they accept the shelter. And on the third occasion, they get cited with a misdemeanor that can be dismissed and waived if they accept shelter. The idea is to get people to accept shelter and services. The fact of the matter is, when Sheriff Cooper went out and did enforcement and outreach with the homeless outreach team, over 90% of the individuals that they contacted and the county contacted, many of them, of those that are chronically homeless, suffering from mental health and drug addiction, refuse services and shelter. And so we need to find a way to encourage that. And how do we do that? With a short-term proposal to enforce the law in a compassionate but balanced manner.
I compared TurboTenant to multiple other softwares. I wanted to do cost-benefit analysis of different platforms. TurboTenant was the easiest from the get-go. Like, I understood how to use it, and TurboTenant hit all the marks for the right price, and it's worked out really well.
You make your kingdom, and your kingdom makes you. Help protect your health and finances with Medicare Solutions from the Mutual of Omaha family of companies.
Hi, Brittany Hope here with KCRA. I'm wondering if you have had a conversation with the police department or the police chief about what they have been told in terms of enforcement, hearing that the city attorney claims there hasn't been any complaints, and your questions that you have for the police department. I noticed when you were listing off city council members and people in the city who have created ordinances, Mayor Steinberg and Councilmember Katie Valenzuela were not mentioned. Do you believe that something came from them or from some city office that was passed to police behind closed doors saying don't enforce this? What are your beliefs?
I think that's a great question. A question that deserves answers. And the answers that I will provide will come after a full process in which we obtain emails and text messages, mandates and memos, in which we have an opportunity to ask people questions under oath. Because I think everybody in this room, I think everyone in the community have burning questions that you are raising.
And if I can ask another question, this is still Brittany Hope with KCRA. The city and the county do have a binding agreement to handle homeless together. Short term, essentially, it says the city has to provide services, the county has to provide shelter, but we do know that there are city shelters as well. The Haven Hope example out of San Antonio sounds like the ideal, and it's something that I think a lot of folks strive for across the city and the county, but things like that take time and they take funding. Within this lawsuit, is there a time that this needs to happen in? And what if the city says they don't have the funding to do it immediately or the space?
Well, first of all, we talk about 7 years. 7 years of what I call continually going on that Groundhog Day loop where nothing seems to change. And so what we are doing is we're shaking things up for sure. Now, people may disagree with our methodology, and I'll say this for a moment. You know, I believe, and I will never question the compassion and the heart that our elected leaders, and that goes to the mayor as well. I believe that he has a good heart. I believe that he is compassionate in regards to our unhoused. The issue that I have is the methodology in the approach. I'll never question somebody's heart, their compassion, their intention, but I will question people's methodology and approach when it doesn't work. And so what we need here, first and foremost, is to start with that compliance. And then we can, at the same time, build out these other aspects as well. And so we are going to move in that direction. As I said, this is not going to happen overnight, but it's an important first step in what we're doing here today. Because how we've been doing business and how we've been conducting business and how we have been leading the city, that needs to change. And it's going to change.
And it sounds like the suit was filed somewhere in the hour of 9 a.m. It's about 10:30 now. Have you received any response yet from the city or the city attorney's office on the suit?
I have not received any response from the city since we filed the lawsuit. They knew as of yesterday that the lawsuit was coming. I gave them the professional courtesy of informing the city that that was happening. And later this afternoon, we will be serving the lawsuit upon the city and proceed with the litigation. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Akash Lal. I'm a small business owner here in Old Sacramento. I own the Union Hotel and a couple other businesses. Very historic crown jewels here in Sacramento that we've constantly had to defend against the homeless. I've had a fire in my building. I've been attacked with a pipe. We've been forced to close our businesses down already in an area where I feel like we need more city support and we're not supported. And our businesses have truly suffered. So first of all, I really thank you for finally taking a stance. The complaints that you know about are probably only 10% because the other 90% are just exhausted and they're just trying to operate their businesses. So, you know, in an area where you know, we have the most tourism in Old Sac and we have these historic buildings, what do you kind of recommend when we've called the local law enforcement? They've always said that they're short-staffed and that there's just nothing we can do. What is an immediate action you can take to either help them with their staff and help us protect our businesses?
First of all, if there's a crime in place, call 911. If it's something that is not an emergency, call 311. You have to document it. By documenting it allows the city to follow up, and if they're not following up, what we're trying to do here is to force the city to follow up with it. I will note this, when you're talking about small business owners here and what's happening, I have a few examples that I want to talk about the equal protection of the law and the enforcement of the law, and I think it's an important fact. In one of our survey responses or conversations with community members, there were construction workers working downtown, and they were parking their car to go to work, but they couldn't put the money into the meter because the unhoused encampment was blocking the meter. Well, the city came by and gave tickets to those construction workers.
Yeah.
How is that fair? We talk about another property owner, and there's a fence, and it's in one of our surveys where his property, the city's property, and it was cut through, and unhoused people were coming onto his property. He couldn't clear the brush from his property because there were people staying on his property illegally, and yet the city fined him. And so we have to have equal protection under the law for all of us. It starts with that premise, but contact law enforcement. Next question.
Mason Morrow from Fox 40 again. I know you brought up the idea, obviously the importance of mental health and substance abuse support for the unhoused population within the city-county agreement that Brittany brought up earlier. That falls on the duty of the county to give that support. Was that considered at all in this investigation? Was the county a part of this investigation whatsoever? And if not, why were they not?
So first of all, there's a lot of questions. Why aren't you going after the county? And when you look at that, what we've seen here in the last year is the county's...
For the ones searching for the products you need, Grainger.com is always there for you. Find high-quality supplies and solutions for every industry. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
In the process of adding on another 300 beds. They've added on close to 300 this year additional mental health treatment options as well, beds, and in particular they've hired mental health behavioral navigators to go out with the city. And that's part of the partnership, is for them to go out with the city. But they go out to the city, the county navigators and the county behavioral health workers, and they go with the city, but they only go where the city directs them. And the fact of the matter is they go out there. What they're encountering, whether it's the city and the county, is with the chronically homeless, the most treatment resistant, that are refusing shelter and refusing services. They're not accepting it. So how do we now encourage, right? How do we encourage those individuals to accept treatment? It starts with compliance and enforcement of the law. And with those changes in the conservatorship law, hopefully we'll have an opportunity then to mandate treatment as well. Now, this is not a quick fix, it's not easy, but this is an important first step to move the needle in the right direction. I'll take one more question.
Good morning, Mr. District Attorney. On what you said about the county, I've read several articles and where some folks are making it to mean like you're attacking them personally, a personal issue, but me and my community, I walk my community, I talk to businesses, and they feel like their voice is not heard. And as you see them, if they can stand over here, those are the ones that I invited and others, and they're supporting what you do, not because you're being deceitful. They have compassion for homeless and all those things, but something needs to be done where these businesses can have their voice heard. Where I live, they're not getting nothing done. They're ready to close their doors. They got to feed their families too. They're calling the city, 311, 211. That is not working. So what you're doing, if it takes that, and I support you in doing it, work at it with your hard will and continue with your office to make them accountable. And that's where you're going to get your support. So don't feel like you're being attacked. Do the job that you were elected to do, and I know you're going to get there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, that'll end our press conference. Thank you.